Hey, everybody, good morning. And you know what time it is. It is time for Multifamily Unplugged. It's Saturday morning. And, like I always say, buckle up, get ready to experience this ride today because I am joined by a good friend, a second or third time around guest on my podcasts, John Casman from Cincinnati, but we'll get into him in a minute. Hey, I always talk to you about intentions, right? What's your intentionality? We have to be intentional about what we're doing, whether it's physical fitness and we're trying to lose weight or get stronger in the gym or just build that discipline. How about in our multifamily business? What are we doing as far as talking to sellers and looking for deals and building the strategic relationships that lead to good teams that we build to build our business? What are you being intentional about? I remember when I was back in the real estate business, I had to be intentional every day about picking up the telephone, calling sellers, looking for listings, right? I knew if I made those 20,000 phone calls a year, that I'd sell 125 listings a year, just the listing side alone. So that business got pretty big, but it was predictable. So how do we make our lives predictable? We do it through our intentionality, right? So I want to invite you, sit down, take a few minutes, think through what you need to be intentional about, what's going to help your business grow to the next level. Hey, this morning's show is brought to you by My Core Intentions, coaching and training. If you are somebody who is new to the multifamily space, you're looking to be involved in it at a greater level, give me a call, reach out to me directly. You can email me at mike@mycoreintentions.com. If I can help answer some questions or network with you a little bit, I'm open to doing that. If you're new to the show, like us, love us. If you're on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel. We're always bringing great relevant content to you to help you grow, help your business grow. So my guest this morning is John Casman. John's from Cincinnati, a longtime Chicago resident before that, though. John runs a company called Casman Capital. He's the host of the Chicago Multifamily Meetup Club, which meets once a month at a great place here in the city, O'Neill's, which probably has got the best corned beef I've ever eaten in my life. But let me bring John in real quick. Hey, John, what's up?
Hey, what's going on, Mike? Good to be here today, and thank you for the shout out on our Chicago Multifamily Club meetup. Definitely a great place to hang out every third Monday if you're around. So check it out.
I'll tell you what, I do not kid you about the best corned beef I've ever eaten in my life. The first time I went to the meetup, I sat at the bar, and nobody was there yet. I ordered dinner. I was a little early, and she brought me a corned beef sandwich. And I said to the bartender, I said, I can't believe this. She goes, I know it's great, right? I go, oh, God, I don't think I've ever eaten corned beef like this. It was so good. So if you get a chance, though, go to the meetup, have a corned beef sandwich, and enjoy your time. That's for sure. Hey, John, welcome back, man. I love having you on. You bring some energy and some insight that I think we all need to have. I learn something from you every time. That's why I love having you back. But we just finished the Multifamily Summit, and you knocked it out of the park again as usual. So I appreciate that. Thanks for being there. And if anybody wasn't there and you want a link to that, let me know, and we'll get you a link to that event. Hey, John, I always start my show, and you should know this by now, but in one word or less, what best describes you personally and professionally?
Resilient.
Resilient. Love that word, because that's how I live my life. We can't let the past define us. But tell me, what makes you resilient?
I think it's the ability to know that it's possible. It's to believe in yourself and to recognize that if other people have done it, there are clues on how to be successful, even if you haven't achieved success yet yourself. So sticking to it, it's one of those things that has helped me from a very young age. Some things came easy, some things didn't. And the things that I was really passionate about that didn't come easy, well, that just meant I had to work a little bit harder to figure it out. And that's ultimately what I did from high school sports. I was a wrestler. I didn't win any matches my freshman year. I finished my senior year with on the record on the career wins list for most career wins. Now, I wasn't number one on that list, but on the same note, part of it was consistency and showing up. I had many people close to me who told me I should quit. You should quit. You're coming home. You got a bruised face. You got a black eye. Your nose is pointing the wrong direction. It's very easy to quit and give up when times are tough. But there was a saying in that wrestling gym that said, "Tough times don't last.
Yeah.
Tough people do." And that was one of those mantras that kind of always stuck with me and helped me realize that if you just show up, if you keep coming back, well, a couple things happen. One, you're going to see other people who don't come back, and you're going to see kind of that the mental aspect has broken them. People who maybe are better athletes or better conditioned, better suited to be successful, but the mental side got to them. And then the other piece is you're going to get better and better every day. So every day you show up, you're going to learn something. You're going to apply that. You're going to get feedback. You get better. So I apply that to life, whether it be real estate investing, parenting, anything else. You just apply those same techniques and strategies, and that resiliency just helps tremendously with being successful. Because for me, it's always a matter of when it breaks or when it clicks and when it comes together, as opposed to if.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. Yeah, I was a wrestler too. And I have to say that's the toughest 6 minutes anybody will ever spend. It is definitely a tough sport. Cauliflower ear, hand, foot, and mouth disease, everything that went into that off the mats. But yeah, good for you. So tell people a little bit about yourself, your background, what you did, what you do now, how you got into this.
Yeah, so originally from Cleveland, born and raised in Cleveland, kind of bounced all over the Midwest, here in Cincinnati now, but lived in Chicago for a while, lived in Detroit for a while. And in short, for me, I was doing what I was told to do, right? What did you read about success and what people were doing? Went to college, graduated, got a good corporate job, went to the corporate side where I was working at General Motors in Detroit at headquarters. And I was doing that, and was in a really good place from a professional standpoint. That was around 2007. So, that's 2008, 2009, company went into bankruptcy, the overall economy, just went into the tank. I watched my colleagues who also had followed that same path. I watched them struggle. I watched them figure out, what in the world they were going to do. There was a gentleman who sat kind of, diagonal from me, and he had been with the company for 22 years, and they had let him go. He had no plan B. He was 3 years away from being able to, qualify for most of his benefits, 7 or 8 years away from, when he expected to retire. And there was no plan B. So I remember him leaving a voice message to me and everyone else on the floor, just out of frustration and anger and shock of what had happened, and just being floored by that, kind of a gut punch. And we all knew layoffs were coming. So it wasn't like that was the shock. We all knew there were going to be layoffs. We all knew that they were going to have to cut kind of deep to hit these numbers. But I guess he didn't realize that, his job could have, was in jeopardy. And it just made me realize that a W-2 job is not guaranteed. No matter how good you are, no matter how loyal a company wants to be, their loyalty is to the bottom line. And at some point, whether it be from a salary standpoint, politics, whatever it is, you may not be that guy anymore, or you may not be the girl or the woman that they want in that position. So I just felt like I had to insulate myself from that situation. So coming out of that, my focus was, well, how do I create passive income, or how do I insulate myself from somebody just pulling a job from under my feet? And real estate was the answer that I turned to. I read Rich Dad Poor Dad earlier, and it just kind of all came rushing back to me at that time. I just didn't know how to get started. So it took me a couple of years to figure out how to actually invest in real estate. And keep in mind, I was in Detroit at this time. So while, 2009, 2010, everyone I knew who owned real estate was trying to sell it and, get rid of it. So it kind of took me a minute to really get comfortable pulling the trigger. But that's what happened in 2011. Moved to Chicago, started wrapping my head around the market there, properties, started touring properties. And we ended up buying our first property that spring of 2012. And I slowly started to build the portfolio from there.
Wow. Interesting. So 2 key points that you hit on that I just absolutely love. One is success leaves clues. And that guy who lost his job really was some kind of success that you could look at and say, man, I don't want that to be me. Right. So whether that success is good or bad. And then the other thing is corporate America is just not a kind place. They don't care. And, that's obviously evident of what happened there. So, a lot of people that listen to us on Saturday morning are new to the real estate business, are people wanting to be a real estate investor. They're learning about multifamily real estate, apartment complexes. How do I go buy a big apartment complex? I know when I first got started in the multifamily business, I never thought, John, I'd buy a 200 unit deal. And before I knew it, I was buying 400 unit deals, right? So you said something really interesting. How do you get started? So how does that new person get started? What are some of the steps that they have to jump into?
Yeah, let me back up real quick so I can answer that the right way. So you mentioned earlier about intentionality. And I think that's really, really important because you do need to be very intentional about what you're doing and what you're hoping to accomplish. And the good thing for me is that, unlike my colleague who got let go and was in shock and had to scramble to figure out his life, I had a lot of time to figure out what was going to happen next. I really like 2 years, from the time that we started, that process of going into bankruptcy to, getting into it, getting through it. I actually thrived coming out of bankruptcy. And what I started to do was really just look around, paying attention to my bosses, my boss's boss, and I try to figure out, well, who would I want to emulate? If I stayed here, whose career do I want? Who looks happy? Who looks complete? Who looks satisfied? And none of the senior leaders were, right? I mean, I'm talking, I don't care how much money they were making. They were not happy. They were, having to wake up super early. They were reading our sales reports every day. And I just looked around. I couldn't find anybody except for one person who was not a senior leader. He sat in a row next to mine, and he sat in the back. And this dude came in the office every day with a nice smile on his face, happy. His name was Jack. And I would always talk to Jack. Jack, how's it going? He always had something positive to say. And I realized that Jack owned some real estate, and Jack had some stuff in Utah and it went up in value. So Jack really didn't need the job. He enjoyed it, right? He enjoyed what he was doing, but he didn't need it. And that gave him a level of comfort that he could show up to work as his regular self, his full self, and he didn't have the pressure on him. And Jack made good money in his job, and I'm sure that he was offered promotions and either turned them down or just decided not to do the things that it takes to get promoted. And it just always stuck with me. I'm like, dude, there's only one person I would actually want to be like when I get older, and it's Jack. So that stuck with me. So as you fast forward and go into my real estate investing and how do you grow and how do you scale, before you try to jump into a 200 unit, why do you want a 200 unit? You have to be intentional and ask yourself, what are you actually solving for? Because maybe a 10 unit solves that problem for you. Maybe a duplex solve that problem for you. Maybe it is 100 units. Maybe you need partners. So you have to break down, what are you trying to achieve? Why are you trying to achieve it? And is this the best path for you to achieve it? So if for whatever reason, a large multifamily property is that solution, you have to understand that you do not invest in large multifamily property by yourself. When people tell you it's a team sport or it's all about relationships, you have to take that to heart. No one I know who is successfully investing in commercial multifamily is doing it by themselves. They all have partners, they all have team members, they all have other folks, even if it's employees, even if they run the company, they all have employees or subordinates or whatever who are doing some of the heavy lifting. So don't think that you're going to come into this by yourself with your own money. You're going to analyze the deal, find the deal, build the broker relationship, put the money down, manage the deal. It's not going to happen. You're not going to be successful because there are teams that are going to be moving where there's a team that handles the acquisitions. There's a team that handles the capital. There's a team that handles other aspects of the business. They're handling either management themselves or they have third-party management in place, and they're moving as a complete team, as a company to acquire these properties. And you're treating this as something you do in your pastime. It's not going to work, not on the big properties. So your mindset has to be right. You have to be willing to partner with people. And if that's the case, the first thing you have to do is align yourself with the people you need. So if you have capital, but you don't have experience, find people with experience. Be willing to maybe be an LP, which means you're a limited partner, you're a passive investor. Start there. If you have the experience, but you don't have as much money to do the deal by yourself, Maybe you can bring on partners. You can either JV or you can raise money from other LPs who want to gain that experience. But you have to figure out what you have, what you bring to the table, where's the void, and who can you connect with so you have a whole unit. Because you cannot do this by yourself. You absolutely need a team.
I love that. And there's a heck of a lot there to unpack, right? But, the one thing I always coach people through is I say, look, let's look at everything that needs to go into successfully acquiring, operating, and selling, exiting from a multifamily deal. All those parts. Let's figure out what you're really good at. Get you really good at it. Now go find other people that are good at everything else. And that's how you build that strong team, that team effort. Because I know there's things I'm not good at. Listen, I hate reading PPMs, right? So I have to have somebody who is on my team that is detail oriented, can cross the I or dot the I's and cross the T's so that we all stay compliant and it keeps us growing in one direction. Without those people, you said a lot there. So talk about the difference between active versus passive investing. You mentioned some terms like LP and
Yeah.
active, investing.
Yeah. So on the active side, that just means that you are going to be managing the deal, right? You are going to be doing whatever it takes to oversee the deal, make sure the deal is successful. So that could be everything from flipping a house to buying a rental to buying a larger apartment building. But that means every step. So finding the deal, figuring out the loan and getting the lending in place, hiring or firing property management. It's going to be all aspects of actually overseeing the business plan of that property. Now, on the passive side, right? So you got active and you have passive. On the passive side, you're not doing those things I just mentioned. All you're doing on the passive side is you're going to evaluate opportunities and you're going to decide whether or not you want to invest. And for that investment, you get a share of equity. It's a LP deal, which means your risk is limited, hence the name limited partner. You have a general partner who has all the exposure. Limited partner has minimal, just whatever you invest in the deal. So as a limited partner, you get returns on your investment. So it's going to be based on whatever the terms of the deal are, how that deal is performing, but you're going to get a return based on that. Sometimes you get some cash flow. You'll get upside on profits when the property sells. And then if there's a refinance or some sort of liquidity event, then you kind of get a payout at that point. But you're not dealing with any of the active stuff. You're not finding the deal. You're not working with the contractors. You're not talking to the property management company. You're not making decisions on what finishes should go into the units. You're not dealing with any of that. You make a decision up front. You like this operator. You like this market. You like this deal. You're going to invest X amount of dollars. You're going to let them work and you're going to get a return. And I will tell you that a huge mistake I see a lot of people make. Everybody wants to come in and have all control.
Hmm.
And it kind of makes sense, right? Because it's real estate. One of the things that's attractive about real estate is you can control it. But if you have no experience, if you have a full-time job, if you have family obligations, why would you want to come in and trust yourself? I know you trust and believe in yourself, right? But you have, on paper, you have no experience. You have other obligations. Why would you bet on yourself with your money when there are groups out there that are full time? They have experience, they have a track record, they have resources, they have connections. Why wouldn't you feel more comfortable parking with them? And that's a mistake even I made, right? When I
Yeah.
was starting out. And part of the reason I made that mistake is I didn't know you could invest passively like that. And
Right.
I also didn't realize that the returns are comparable because I think you believe that, oh, if I do this, I'll make more money if I do it by myself. But in
Yeah.
reality, if you're investing in a larger deal that has scale and you have a professional team in place and they have a business plan that they've put together and they're going to go out there and execute, the returns are probably comparable to if you were to go out there and do it all by yourself. But the exception is the sweat equity. If you're doing it by yourself, you're not really calculating how much time and energy you are putting into the deal, right? How many hours are you spending running around a Home Depot, chasing down contractors, trying to do all this other stuff, right? No one's counting that. They're only looking at the money returns. Well, if you're only going to make money returns, then you should do it passively, right? So you're not spending your time. But if you're going to actually invest and get a true ROI, you have to calculate how much time you're spending on the deal. And most people aren't willing to do that.
Well, there is a big time issue there. So here I want to back up for a minute. I have a couple things I want to unpack here. What are you really good at, and what part of that syndication team do you play, and what does that look like in the midst of you taking a multifamily deal to the market?
That's a great question. So my background in corporate America was in marketing. So marketing is one aspect I'm pretty strong at. But taking that a notch further, my main role was really kind of client interactions. So when I was on the agency side, I was the agency lead with the client. So I did everything from negotiating our MSA. I, worked with their business affairs team. I sat with my client to understand their goals and objectives, and then I led my team to help come up with creative and solutions that delivered on that client's objectives, right? So my role was really as a liaison or intermediary. So when it comes to the real estate side, investor relations is kind of a key role, right? So I'm the person who interfaces with investors. I'm the person who understands what they're looking for, what this deal can do. I'm interfacing with our team from a construction standpoint, property management standpoint. Hey, here's what we need to do. Here's how we need to do this. I'm managing that P&L. So that was what I was doing in the corporate world as well. So I know what our budgets are. I know how much money we have to spend on certain things. I know how to reallocate funds as needed. So that's kind of the core role that I play, is more business operations, liaison between kind of the investors and the deals and the key components of the deal. When it comes to, I think the role people should look at, what are you naturally gifted at? You want to really think about that, because I talk mostly from the investor side. There's also a broker side of that too. So, in the same skills it takes to work with investors, the same skills it takes to work with brokers to find deals. So, if you can understand people, you understand relationships. What is this person looking for? How do I help them get that? How do we deliver? How do we position ourselves as the right solution for that? That's going to help you be successful. So the same thing is what we do with brokers on the acquisition side, right? I know what they're looking for, I know what kind of pricing guidance they have. I, work with our underwriting teams to, figure out where we come in our numbers. Can we adjust anything? Are we staying conservative with our numbers? And then work with the broker to say, hey, we're here. What can we do? Is there a way we can, tighten up? Would your seller take this offer? We're working and kind of communicating and building relationships from that standpoint. So if you're looking to get into this and grow, you have to do kind of a self inventory. What's your skill set? What are your strengths? What are you able to bring to the table? Are you great at analyzing deals? Are you great at numbers in general? Maybe you have a finance background, you're great at forecasting, then analyzing these deals might be a great role for you. If you're great at relationships, okay, maybe being on the acquisition side or working with investors is the right role for you. Maybe you're good at just project management. And if you're good at that, maybe being an asset manager is a great role, or even property management is a great role. So there's a lot of different roles that you can play in this space. It really just comes down to what skills do you bring to the table and what skills are transferable.
Yeah, absolutely. Well spoken. And there's a lot there. I would encourage people to go back and listen to that, because you really have to discover your why, which you talked about, and you have to discover what you're good at so that you know how you can bring that strength you have to a team to make a team solid. Hey, I want to talk about returns for a minute. So, we're in an economic climate that, it's tough to pencil a deal right now, and sellers pricing is still off, and, cap rates are compressed still, and, debt is more expensive today. From the one side of how do we analyze a deal, how do we look at a deal right now, what are your investors, when you bring a deal to market today in this environment, looking for, compared to what you could have shown them a year ago, or 9 months ago, 6 months ago, to today? So what do those returns look like for the LP today?
That's a good question. From a LP standpoint, some investors want the same returns that they could have got, last year or 6, 7 months ago. For others, they recognize that the market's changing, the climate's changing, and their options are becoming more limited. So I think part of it is more just being proactive with investors, having these conversations, letting them know why you like a deal, what the risk adjusted returns are, and helping them understand how this can fit into their investing portfolio. As far as actual numbers, I mean, that's going to vary, but I would say we want to make sure we're doing deals that pencil for us and we are comfortable holding long term if needed. Because if you stick to your fundamentals, buying quality assets with a value add plan or a way to create value, you have a conservative loan in place, that's going to give you flexibility. And we know that over the long haul, real estate tends to beat the market. So we know that it's a great inflation fighter. We know that rents tend to go up during recessions. You got to watch delinquencies. That's one thing you got to keep your eye on. But rents in general tend to go up. So for us, we think that we are well positioned and we think that we can still exceed expectations, but it is much harder to find deals that pencil based on the cost of capital.
Yeah. I know right now we're chasing a deal in Houston, about 197 units, and we're really close, but it's it's a $20 million deal, and we're about within $300,000 to $400,000 of each other, us and the seller, and that could make or break the deal, and it could make or break the return that we can project for our investors, and so whether we'll be able to raise the capital based on a lower return is still questionable. But here's what I tell people today: even if a multifamily deal where your capital is protected, it's secured in the real estate, and you are going to see maybe a 13% per year IRR, and maybe get a 6% cash on cash along the way. Where else are you going to go do that? What other asset class, are you going to do that in? Because multifamily still proves strong.
Yeah, I mean, you're spot on. Listen, I think the fundamentals of multifamily are still strong. I think the residential market is going to see some more changes and impact, but rents are still going up. There's still a shortage of apartment units and housing in this country. So we are seeing that rental demand is still strong. So if you're buying in quality areas and quality markets where population is solid, the industry is diversified and growing, I think you're going to be in a pretty good place. Now, again, you have to buy it right. You have to make sure you have the right loan on it.
Yeah.
But if you do those things, the fundamentals are still there. Now, I am expecting some sort of pullback in the economy, and that may impact rent growth at some point. But nonetheless, the fundamentals are still really strong. And like you said, where else are you going to get these returns? It's really hard to get. The stock market's been down all year. It's actually on pace to be the worst pretty much since they started recording history on the stock market at this point. But it's down 20 something percent for the year. So, what are your options? I mean, you just lost a fifth of your net worth if you had all in the stock market. So yes, to make a 6% return, a lot of people would rather park their capital there as opposed to leave it in the stock market to roll off this roller coaster.
Yeah. And you look at people on fixed incomes, like elderly, right, where they might be counting on the money that they have put away in the stock market or in some type of an annuity or something. It's at jeopardy today. That income stream's at jeopardy today. I heard some interesting statistics this week. So S&P's down 6% this year. Stock market's down 10%. Although we had a robust year last year, we're still down in comparison to it. But apartments grew over 10%. So if we're down 6% here, 10% in the stock market, but apartments are up 10% and still growing, and the fundamentals are still strong, why would a passive investor want to be anywhere other than, multifamily right now? So,
yeah, great points.
Yeah, it was just kind of I like to listen to a lot of these economists and see where we're at. And inflationary numbers came out this week, and they're high. They're still high. So How are you sourcing debt today? So, not even the LP side or the private side, what does debt look like to you today? And when you're underwriting or you're looking at a deal that you're going to bring to the market, how are you evaluating that debt component?
Yeah, the debt's going to be on a deal by deal basis. I think it's really important to have the right debt for the right business plan. So we still entertain, bridge loans. We still look at fixed debt. Ideally we always start fixed if we can get it, but sometimes you have to understand like what is the business plan for this property? And if the best plan is to come in, increase the value by, doing a big lift or whatever, you don't want to hold that for 7 years with that loan. You don't want a fixed loan where you're not able to tap into the equity that you've created. So you want to have some flexibility to be able to tap into that. On the flip side, let's say you find a quality assets in pretty good shape, not much of a value add deal based on renovations, not on forced depreciation, but you love the area, you think the fundamentals are there, and you think over the next 5 to 10 years, the area is going to continue to improve, and rents are going to continue to improve. Well, that's a place where you may want to have, long-term fixed debt in place because you want to lock that in and kind of have it more predictable. So it really depends on the business plan for that property and that project. The more stable the asset, the more likely I am to lean towards let's have, fixed interest rate, because the fear is that if you're not able to create enough value when you go to refinance, you may not be able to get the terms that you're looking for. If you're buying something that's say 80% leverage and you increase the value, but you go to refinance and maybe they only give you 65% LTV, or maybe the interest rate changed from 4% to 6%. So that's the issue that you run into, is that maybe you didn't create enough value. So that's one way to analyze the deal. The flip side of that is, well, if you avoid that completely and say, hey, we're going to find deals where, there's a light value add, we can push rents, but it's not like you're pushing them $300. So while you're pushing rents, you're locking in your debt and you're basically riding it out because you like the fundamentals of that deal, of that market, of your business plan. So it really just depends on that. And I'm sourcing capital based on the deal, based on the market. We have regional lenders, we have mortgage brokers that we have relationships with, and we try to talk to them all the time and try to understand, hey, here's our business plan. What do you think? How would you structure this? What's the capital stack you will look into? So we try to just stay flexible and open, and then also listen and not be assumptive that we know what we want to do, because sometimes they have a different loan product that maybe we weren't thinking about, or there's a property could qualify for something that maybe we're not privy to, or there's a different way to stack the capital. So you just try to talk to our peers, talk to lenders, talk to brokers, and try to just stay open-minded and creative with selecting the right property for the right loan for that business plan of that property.
Yeah. And what's interesting is so many different lenders have those different programs. So you never know what you might fit into. So it's definitely interesting. That's for sure. What are you working on these days?
Well, we got a couple of things that we're working on, nothing that we're ready to talk about publicly, but we've got a couple of interesting deals that we're exploring. I got a call actually I just missed that I'll call them back and see what's going on with this deal. But for us, one of the big things we're looking at is kind of making sure that we're bringing the right deals to the table. And the way we do that is we tap into our network, we tap into our strategic partners, and we explore some of the deals that they're getting as well. So that's something that we're looking at heavily. We're looking at deals in markets we're already in. We're talking to brokers there to see, hey, are there any of our neighbors who may be in a situation where they're interested in selling, and maybe interested in selling off market or selling quickly. So, in places where you have some credibility built up, or you already have kind of a team in place, you have, some great relationships, it's a little bit easier to have those conversations because they already know the property you have, they already know the area that you're in, and you can say, hey, you got anything in this area, anybody, who may be interested in selling. That's going to start with a warm conversation versus, you just calling up a broker out the blue and trying to get something off market.
Yeah, that's for sure. Well, listen, hey, this has been a pleasure, and I'm thankful for your insight, your knowledge, and like I said, I always learn something when you and I connect. what I always like to end on on three bonus questions, right? So, what's the best book you've ever read?
Oh man, the best book. I could go in a few different directions, but if I'm using the word best, man, that's tough. I'm gonna just say Atomic Habits. Atomic Habits, I think, was a book that helped me learn to break down uh, habits, as the name implies, but break it down into really something that is simple and easily executable. I think most, self-help books and personal development books, they're great at strategy and development, but it's not something you can do immediately. I mean, this book was one where, I mean, that day you could do something in that moment and apply it to start changing the lifestyle and the habits that you're forming. And I just thought that was very powerful, just the immediacy of it.
Hmm, very true. Good for you. It's that intentionality, right? And I think that I read that book too, and it was good. Hey, here's one you might want to think about. But I read a book by Tim Grover, who was
Mm,
coach of Michael Jordan and Kobe
yes.
Bryant, called Winning. uh, Changed my perspective on a lot of things. So you might,
So I haven't read Winning. Tim Grover wrote another book that I did read. I'm trying to remember the
oh,
name of that book.
I can't,
But I read the other book by Tim.
yeah,
Yeah.
but Winning is really good. It kind of kicked my butt.
Okay.
Uh, Best restaurant,
Ooh. Anywhere or
yeah, anywhere, but can't say O'Neill's.
no, it's not O'Neill's. It's a great place, but not the number one. Chicago Cut's my favorite restaurant.
Oh,
So I love the food there. The steaks are amazing. I really love the sides. They've got a cream spinach dish, which is just amazing. So I'm gonna go Chicago Cut as my number one.
good steak and potato, right?
Yeah.
Best tourist attraction.
Ooh, like in the world
Yeah,
or
what?
Chicago?
Yeah,
Okay.
where would you point people to?
I just we just came from California and we did not go to Disney this time, but we went to Universal Studios and they just do a great job with the experience there. I spent way more money on stuff that was completely overpriced for the experience. And as a marketer, it kind of just hurt me because you do it for your kids and all that. But it was a great time. So I would say you can't go wrong with, Universal Studios, the Disneys. They understand how to create experiences. So those are places I would check out.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Disney does know how to create an experience. And that's what you and I try to do for our investors is create an experience, right? Where they can enjoy the ride, whether there's some bumps along the way or whether it's smooth sailing. So you never know what you're going to get. John, how do people reach out to you and get in contact with you?
Yeah, I think the easiest thing is, check out our sample deal. Whether you are an active investor looking to scale a portfolio or you want to be passive and you're trying to figure out what you should look for in a deal, check out the sample deal package at casmancapital.com/sample deal. And you'll get some follow-up emails from us. You get added to our newsletter. But that's a great place to start. So you can start to understand what kind of things to include in a deal or you should be looking for in a deal, market information, sponsor information, all those kind of things, and just the deal structure as well. We start getting into the equity splits and who gets paid when and all of that. So if you want to wrap your head around that, check out our sample deal package.
Nice. All the times I've heard you say that, I've never gone and grabbed that myself. And I'm
Look
going to
at
do that today.
that. I'm not doing a great job pushing you then.
I'm going to go check that out. So,
There you go.
hey, John, thanks for being here today. I appreciate you. I appreciate your input at the summit last week.
Yes.
It was just killer. And, you always know how to rock the stage. That's for sure. So look forward to seeing you at O'Neill sometime in the next few months and, or next time you're in Chicago. So we'll catch up. I'm going to move you to the back room. If you want to hang out with me for a minute, I'm going to say goodbye to everybody.
Sounds good. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you. Hey, everybody. That was my guest, John Casman. Good friend, great operator, great sponsor. Go to casmancapital.com /sample deal download what his deal structure looks like and how you can maybe get started in the business passively or actively. Use the guidance, use the direction that we talk about. I'm here every Saturday morning, bring a great guest, somebody who's going to build into you, give you some relevant content, help you be intentional about building your business. If you're somebody looking for guidance, direction, you need a little bit of help, you want to network or ask some questions, don't hesitate, reach out to me. You can email me direct at mike@mycoreintentions.com. And I look forward to talking to you next week. Tell somebody about the show. Remember, subscribe to us on YouTube. There's a ton of relevant content out there, some courses, some things that you can get involved